Do you have a glitch in the Matrix experience you'd like to share? Go to astheravendreams.com and click on the button to submit your story. And thank you. Someone told me about this subreddit after I posted on Paranormal, so this is a repost from about 3 years ago now. I recently had another small glitch about this exact post experience, with my mother as well. I figured why not post it here, where it belongs. I don't post much, but I've been holding this in for a while. I wanted to see if maybe any of you had had a similar experience. To get the story started, I'll have to jump back in time. Around 2015 or 16, I was getting ready to go out with my mother and grandmother to go to Hobby Lobby. And for those of you who don't know what Hobby Lobby is, it's a store that's full of art and craft items, candles, etc. It's like a Walmart for crafts and art. Anyhow, after I was done getting ready, I sat in my room playing with my parakeet because I had some time to spare. A bit of time had passed, and my mother, whom I told to get me when she was ready to go, hadn't come to get me. I walked out into the living room and she was flabbergasted by my appearance. Not because of the way I was dressed, but because I had come out of my room. My mother claimed to have come into my room and said the lights were off, and she had checked all around for me and assumed I went to my grandma's. She lives right behind my mom's house. I told her I was in my room the entire time, and we both felt strange after that. Now, before this entire incident, my mother was very liberal, as well as a few of my other family members. A bit of time passed, and when I woke up one day, everything had changed. My grandma, who was strictly against tattoos and dyed hair, began doing so. She got a tattoo. She dyed her hair pink. I was highly confused and brushed it off as a change of heart. That was until my mother became this kind of hardcore conservative overnight. It was all weird. And my other grandmother, who didn't like tattoos either, got one as well. Everything that I grew up with had just changed. Little by little, I've been noticing more differences in my family from what I had grown up with. I kept trying to make excuses for it, but nothing was fitting right. I'm still stuck here in this universe that doesn't feel like my own. Now, I've always been spiritual in the sense that spirits are attracted to me, and I connect with my third eye often. But I don't know what to do. And I've read theories that once you hop, you can't go back to where you're from. And this isn't like a political issue. I'm not mad that my mother is conservative or whatever. It's just totally different from the mom that I grew up with. Things have gotten weird. Some of my lifelong wishes have come true, but nothing feels right. Ever since I've realized all this, my brain has gotten strange. I suffer from bouts of disassociation, which at first I thought could have been seizures. Except my soul feels like it's floating above my body. Nothing feels like it belongs to me anymore. My body feels foreign often. It feels as though my soul is trying to connect with a body that never belonged to it. I know, I sound kind of crazy, but I'm saying this with 100% honesty from my side. I was going to try to make a video, but I don't want to upset my family or scare them by making them think I don't care about them. I try to make this new life work for me, but nothing is helping. Does anyone know what I can do to adjust? I have memories that nobody in my family remembers. And I tried going to doctors who say I should get a brain scan and tests, but I can't afford that right now. They say I'm coherent enough to pass the tests, but I don't know why I'm having these episodes of disassociation / minor brain seizures. I really highly believe that this isn't my world. Those close to me can vouch for me, and I can get screenshots of old text I've sent stating what I'm stating here. If anyone has any sort of idea what this is, please, I'm willing to hear it all. All I know is that doctors are puzzled, I'm puzzled, and nobody besides my boyfriend and closest friends know about this. If you've read this, thanks. This was a small venting session about my situation, and I hope that someone might have some answers. Edited 12/04/2021. Someone asked me if any major events happened in 2016, and I forgot to mention it. The same year that I experienced an overdose, I was 16 or 17 at the time, I experienced the void. A pure, true, black nothingness. I can't recall if it happened before or after the room incident stated above, so I can't say what is truly the cause for this glitch. I originally posted this 3 years ago, and have undergone extreme life changes. Changes that never seemed reasonable or even possible, for that matter. I'm 22 now, and still to this day, believe I'm not in my world anymore. My life has 180'd starting in 2016. People I'm close to have forgotten past major events or conversations between us. I'm living the life of another version of me. I don't belong here, and honestly, I'm just living day by day. The only reason I'm back here updating this is because of the situation I encountered 2 days ago, which I have proof of. This recollection was told on a channel that I had been telling my closest friends that I wanted proof that glitches exist before I heard my story being told to me through my headphones. I messaged my mom immediately and told her I wrote about our portal encounter and just heard it on YouTube for the very first time. She messaged me back just moments later, freaking out that she was watching a paranormal show, and the very second I messaged her, they were talking about portals. I have these screenshots, and I'm so glad to know that I now have just a smidgen of evidence, and that I'm not crazy. First of all, let me be very clear. I am very, very mentally ill. It's nothing that normally causes hallucinations or delusions, though. I mean, my depression does tell me that life is meaningless, and my PTSD does tell me that nowhere and nothing is safe, but those aren't really delusions per se. Just things that are probably objectively true, but are usually ignored by healthier minds so that they may continue to function and presumably propagate our species in accordance with the prime directive of all organic life. But yeah, it's a bundle of affective and anxiety disorders. Very fun. To be fair, the above is a moot point since I'm more the subject of this story than the object. I just always wanted to do my own version of, first of all, I'm not mentally ill, intro except in reverse. Okay, on to the story. It's pretty simple, really. What it says in the title, due to the nature of what bilocation is, or is thought to be, I obviously couldn't experience it directly, and am relying on testimony from a friend of mine. If I'm in two places at once, the me who is me could only obviously experience one version of that span of time. I was roughly 17 years old at the time, a junior in high school. It was second semester, so springtime. I believe it was a Wednesday, but I suppose that doesn't really matter much. What does matter is that our history teacher wanted the entire class to come in after school to watch the Les Miserables movie. I believe the 1998 version with Liam Neeson, for extra credit. We were doing the unit on the French Revolution, and as I remember, it was not mandatory, but highly, almost desperately encouraged for some reason that I couldn't discern either then or now. Maybe she was dealing with some personal stuff and didn't want to be alone. She was quite young, but very curmudgeonly and not particularly well-liked or pleasant to her students. So, it's a bit odd that she was so keen to spend an extra couple of hours with them. There would, of course, be a worksheet or quiz after the movie that would need to be turned in the next day to get the extra credit. I was in my school's IB program, which was basically just a college prep program where you take a bunch of AP-level classes all at once, so most of my classmates were the driven and motivated sorts. The majority of them couldn't resist the offer of extra credit, as even the slightest advantage was an advantage nonetheless. I probably started out that way, but at this point my depression and PTSD started to manifest in full force, probably spurred on by the puberty chemicals, and while I continued to get good grades going forward, I only did so due to a talent for osmosis and a decent memory. The motivation had already begun to leak out of me like air escaping a punctured inflatable raft. So, I very briefly entertained the idea of going to the movie showing, but ultimately concluded that I could coast my way to an A without it. And I really didn't want to have any more time in that particular class. What I did decide to do was tell my parents I was staying after school for an activity and take the couple extra hours to myself. As a kid that age, especially one whose parents had been overprotective in childhood and who have always had to share space with a sibling, I relished the opportunity to actually be alone for a while. So, I took a walk. I walked around the school, past and through the athletic fields, which were mostly empty that day, and down into a wooded area past the school grounds, which was essentially a public park with a nice path for walking and jogging. I was depressed, in the clinical sense, but I was also a dramatic teen, so I spent that time pining after somebody that I had an unrequited crush on, and wondering what combination of words I could put together into a bit of perfectly maudlin poetry, such that they would finally fall in love with me. Eventually, I looped back around and then got a ride home slightly before the Les Mis crowd was due to disperse. The very next day, a close friend of mine at the time asked me to help him with the worksheet for the movie. I reminded him that I hadn't seen it. I didn't go to the extra credit thing. He seemed really confused and claimed that I was messing with him. I explained that I was absolutely not. I had never seen that version of Les Mis to this day, and I certainly wasn't there to see it that afternoon. He then went on to tell me, with amusement and confusion in his voice and face, that not only had I been there, but I had sat behind him, that we'd had an entire conversation on and off, whispering, I assume, and that I had shared a spare juice box with him, which he apparently drank right then and there. The thing about the IB program in my school was that it was quite small and relatively new at the time. There were maybe 40-ish of us, and we all took the same classes. We all knew each other, so it couldn't just be someone who looked a lot like me and acted and spoke like me that my friend had simply never had a shared class with before that day. He wouldn't mistake anybody else in the program for any other person in the program. And here the obligatory no drugs thing comes in. We were clean, nerdy kids, and at that point most of us hadn't even had a sip of beer. And my friend is much more mentally healthy than I am. No diagnoses to this day as far as I know. Ultimately, we both sort of waved the incident away. It was, after all, impossible. And if it was impossible, then it must not have been true. I know where I was and what I was doing, and he claimed with a straight face that he thought I was sitting behind him and giving him juice. But he must have been mistaken. Assuming that something weird did happen, both of us must have just figured the other was goofing and left it at that. He must have been pulling my leg. To be honest, the latter is my primary hypothesis to this day. Occam's razor would indicate that this is the case. The somewhat weird thing, that in no way rules out the rational explanation but certainly muddies the water a bit, at least subjectively, is that we remained friends and fairly close for years and years thereafter, through college and well into adulthood, finally drifting apart only once he got married and started exclusively hanging out with other couples doing whatever it is that groups of couples do. I remained single, not surprisingly, and he has never flinched or changed his story. Across the years, every once in a while, one of us would bring up that instance, presumably to get the other to confess to it, and each time we would hold fast to our respective stories, with straight faces, and then sort of just drop it again. If I were to investigate the occurrence now, I suppose I would try to get other people to confirm or deny what he saw, but I'm 35 now. Everyone else is also 35-ish now, depending on birthday. So, even if I were to track down one or more people from our program, their testimony would be unreliable either way. According to my friend, we mostly interacted with each other in his version of events, so I doubt anyone else would have been paying attention to whether I was or wasn't there that day, especially in a dark room with a movie playing. I'm not really sure why it didn't occur to us to check with the others at the time. I know some theorize that the glitch in the Matrix stories have some sort of perception filter affecting them, discouraging people from sharing. But I don't really buy into that idea, considering how popular these kinds of stories are these days. Heck, they were kinda popular, though much less prominent even back then. I guess maybe we just didn't think it was worth investigating, since both of us still suspect that the other is pulling an elaborate, soon-to-be decades-long prank, and ultimately the actual event was utterly inconsequential when it comes to our day-to-day lives. I'm certainly no stranger to weird bits and bobs, but for some reason this one sticks out most in that it continues to instill doubt. Maybe if he really did mess with me that afternoon and decided to stick by his story for fun, that little bit of doubt and wonder was his gift to me. But, alright, I think I'm done. I've posted here before about welcoming in my friend's doppelganger into our house when I thought it was his twin brother. This is what happened with one of the same friends some time later. I hope that it fits here, and if not, my apologies. Again, my friend Jeff invited me over. He had moved to a new apartment and told me that he had met his new neighbors. He said that his neighbors, a man and wife, were having a get-together, and Jeff was invited. Jeff called me up and invited me to the party, and I accepted. It was a BYOB, bring your own beer, so I ran to the liquor store and got myself a pint of Hennessy. I then went to Jeff's house, hung out with him for a while, and then we proceeded to his neighbors. The one neighbor was a white, ginger alcoholic male with a big dog. His wife was a white woman with brown hair, and we all were students at the University of Buffalo, which is known to be haunted. They lived in an off-campus house. After talking a little, eating a little, and drinking, we all moved to the living room to watch TV with the lights off. The married couple sat together, I sat by myself, and Jeff sat by himself. And we all watched TV in silence and drank by ourselves. After about 5 minutes of silence, the front door burst open very strongly, like someone kicked it in. The front door is right in the living room where we were. In hurries a college-aged white female. She had long hair, blue jeans, a regular shirt, and a purse and keys. She slams the door behind herself. She doesn't say anything to anyone and quickly finds a seat next to me. I assumed that she was the friend of the neighbor's wife, and that I may have been hooked up on a blind date. Because she sat so close to me, I assumed that she was hooked up with me. We didn't talk, she didn't drink, but she just checked her phone like she was busy and watched TV. After about 10 to 20 minutes, things started to get weird and confusing. So, she is so close to me that I'm admiring her beauty and looking forward to talking to her. As I'm checking her out from the corner of my eye, I get a cold chill down my spine that I immediately ignore. But at the same time, she appeared to get the same chill as the hair on her neck started to stand up. She immediately starts to look around in a panic, grabbed her phone and her purse, stood up out of her seat in a hurry, runs to the front door, jerks it open, scurries out, and then violently slams the front door closed behind her. We were all watching TV and drinking in the dark, so I just kept drinking. I figured that either I spooked her out because of my energy, I was still freaked out from the doppelganger sighting, and maybe she got scared and freaked out, or she had forgot something and had to leave. The rest of the night was silent as I fell asleep on the couch. But the next day, I asked about that girl and nobody seemed to know what I was talking about. They didn't hear the front door slam open or closed when she came and went, nor did they see or invite anyone else over but Jeff and I. There was no girl. Now, I know what I saw, but I'm thinking, did I get a visit from an angel? Did time freeze, allowing her to come to me? Is my mind just playing tricks on me? I posted a while ago about a glitch while working on Halloween where my ring apparently glitched off of my hand. Just yesterday I had another glitch and it's been bothering me ever since. I work in the photo lab at my job, and with the Christmas rush, I've been super busy with orders of all kinds lately. A lot of sales have been going on, so similar orders pop up one after another. In this case, there was a special for free 8x10s. I believe it was either Thursday or Friday. I printed a slew of them and was labeling them to be sorted into boxes to await customer pickup, when I noticed I had 2 orders by the same person. A common theme with these types of specials. We'll say the name was Biggers. It was a very distinct name, hence why I remember printing it so well. I remember thinking, damn, I didn't realize there were 2 for her. I could have just put them in the same envelope. While I'd also gotten confused for a moment before wondering why I had 2 pictures by the same person, but couldn't find the label. So I found the label, packed them up, and put them away. Among the other orders, I remember printing 2 orders of people with the same last name. We'll call them Loud. L Loud and A Loud. They both had orders, and I remember them because they matched, and I see their names a lot while working. So I packed them up, and I put them away. So yesterday I'm at work, and Miss Biggers comes in for her orders. I have 2, she says, and I reply, yes ma'am, I remember printing them. But when I look in the boxes under the letter B, I only see 1 print. She tells me again that I know I had 2, and I believe her and reiterate that I remember printing 2 for the reasons above. I go to check the printer and search the history, and only 1 order comes up. The one that I found. I go to the computer and search customer history. These never get cleared, so there are orders from a decade ago listed on there, And even if an order is canceled, they aren't deleted, only labeled as canceled. But there's still only one order on there. Unable to figure out what happened to the other order, I tell her to just resubmit it, and I'll honor the sale and end of conversation. I figure it's just a fluke, until Mr. Loud comes in. I have one for L and one for A. Yes, I remember them. Except I only find L's photos, not A's. He insists that there are 2 orders, and I know that he's right. Like before, I check the printer, I check the computer history. Absolutely nothing. These orders apparently never existed. I tell him that this just happened earlier. I play it off as a system error and tell him to resend them and we will honor the free price. When the manager who was present while I was working on the orders originally comes in, I ask her if she remembers those names and how I printed multiple ones. She says yes. I tell her that they apparently never existed and aren't anywhere in the system. She's as dumbfounded as I am. I've experienced weird things in the past that I joked were glitches in the Matrix, but this is crazier than anything I've experienced, and it baffles me. I could explain the rain glitch right away, but I cannot explain this one away. I regret not asking for order proof from the customers, like emails or order numbers to see if there was residual leftovers. So, yesterday we had a funny and interesting scenario that was most obviously a coincidence, but I love exploring the possibility that it was something more. Some background details. My wife is somewhat religious. She hasn't been to church in a long time, but prays every night thinking God is watching over, etc. Me, I just think there's some sort of greater entity out there, and whether it be God, aliens, or something else, we get into playful arguments about this, but that's a whole other story. My wife has a small business, and so a couple of times per week, she has to drop a bunch of orders off at the post office to ship out. And my wife is approximately 3 months pregnant, but there's not really a bump or anything yet, so you wouldn't know it just by looking at her. So on to the story. Yesterday we go to the post office and I sit in the car while she goes inside. She apparently fell running up the stairs, but I was looking at my phone and I didn't see what happened. She caught the fall with her arms and hands to shield her pregnant belly. While she was inside, an older woman in a big van pulled up next to me in the parking lot. I didn't really notice her doing anything. She seemed to basically just be standing around outside the driver's door. Normally, people park and just go right inside, but she was just standing around. A few minutes later, my wife comes out and said to me, "Dude, didn't you see me fall?" The window was open and she said this to me while standing outside the passenger door, right next to the woman with the van. Within like 1 second, the woman said to my wife, "Oh my god, I hope you're okay," and instantly handed her 2 identical coins. The coins are basically like a penny with a cutout of a cross in the middle, and a cutout that was a small cross that fits perfectly. The part that we find weird was that there was zero hesitation from this woman. She didn't reach into her pockets or anything. She had the coins in her hand ready to go and responded instantly. After she handed off the coins, she didn't say anything and walked away toward the entrance. So, that's the story of how we were possibly visited by an angel yesterday. We semi-seriously think it was an angel, and that she gave 1 coin for my wife and 1 coin for the baby. I love talking and thinking about supernatural and glitchy stuff, so of course this is a possibility we'll never rule out. But thinking logically, I assume most likely one of 2 things is what actually happened. She somehow saw my wife fall, although I don't think she could have with the way the times lined up, and waited purposely for her to come out to give her the coins as a way of saying, "bless you," or whatever. Or the woman just has a big collection of these coins and hands them out to random people during interactions. But what do you all think? So that was this week's Glitch in the Matrix collection. I hope that you enjoyed them. I really do. Honestly, I do these stories with hopes that you all will enjoy them tremendously. I do this for myself, I'll absolutely say that, but I do this for all of you as well, and this topic seems to do really well with all of you, so again, I hope it's something that you enjoyed, and I hope these stories were good for you. That all said, if you want to support the channel, you can please do subscribe. That was a weird way to say that. If you want to support the channel, please do subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you're already subscribed, thank you for coming back to another video. Always appreciate it. That said, speaking of subscription numbers, as of the time of me recording this, we hit 7,000 subscribers on this channel. 7,000. 7,000. That is insane to me. So a huge thank you to all of you out there who have subscribed, and anyone who listens. And yeah, just here's to the future, right? Speaking of the future, I don't know how that's a good segue, but we're going to use it. Last week's word of the week was remonstrate, and several of you amazing people posted comments. It was a hard word to use, so I get that it may not have been the most popular one. That's fine. I appreciate everybody who left me a sentence, or story, in certain cases, 242. I really do appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Thank you. This week we're going to go a little easier, a little more simple on the word of the week, and ironically, a little less ambitious. And I say that because the word of the week this week is ambitious, full of characterized by or motivated by ambition, greatly desirous, eager, requiring or showing much effort, challenging. Such as, I may be a rather ambitious person as I look to the future of this channel and think, by the end of 2022, we're going to be at 25,000 subscribers. That may be an ambitious goal, but it's doable, and I think we'll be there, honestly. How ambitious are you? Are you ambitious enough to leave me a sentence down below? Guess we'll see. And of course, until then, sleep well.